Hello and welcome. In this video, we are going to talk about bankruptcy software. This is the software that is used to draft bankruptcy petitions, which are the forms and schedules that are used to file bankruptcy with the court. And I'm going to walk you through downloading, installing, and configuring a 100% free demo copy of Best Case Bankruptcy. This is the most widely used bankruptcy software program in law firms today. My name is Clay, and I started drafting bankruptcy petitions back in 2009. Drafting bankruptcy petitions is a highly sought-after skill, and it's not taught in law school or paralegal courses, ironically. It is a skill that anyone who takes the time to learn can do, and it's a skill that can take care of you for a lifetime. Hey, let's get started. All right, it's now time to download, install, and set up Best Case. So I'll go ahead and click on my link here in the presentation to load the Best Case website. What you'll do is go ahead and just open a web browser and navigate to bestcase.com. Now right here on the home page, you'll bring your mouse over to Try for Free and click there. And this page that loads, you'll need to scroll down just a little bit to find the form. Best Case does require that you fill out this form here with your information or some sort of information and mark the CAPTCHA "I'm not a robot" box and hit submit. And so I'm going to pause the video while I go ahead and fill this form out and get that download pop-up to start appearing on my screen here. So just a moment, we'll be right back. Okay, so here's the download dialog box, and I'm going to go ahead and just pick my desktop as my location to download to. You can choose whatever folder on your own local computer you prefer, and go ahead and hit save here. Now this is a 300 or so megabyte file. As Best Case continues to add features and improve the product, the installer file size does increase. And so I'm going to go ahead and pause the video while this downloads, instead of having you wait and watch, and we'll come back and install it together. Alrighty, the download completed. I went ahead and closed the browser, and as you can see up here in the corner, this bcsetup.exe file, that's Best Case Setup that we downloaded. It's about 270 megabytes in size. And for those of you who have the question of, hey, does this run on a Macintosh? The answer is sort of. There is no Macintosh version of Best Case or any other bankruptcy software that I'm aware of. That's part of the reason why there's been the move to the cloud, where when the bankruptcy software exists online and you just log into the website and use it there, there is no installation, and so it's agnostic to whatever operating system you're running, whether that's Windows, Mac OS, or anything else, Linux, whatever. Anyhow, for the installer version though, Windows is what is available, and this is what we're going to run. So I'm going to go ahead and double click on that to run this installer. And we'll walk through this initial setup here. You can take the time that you want to while you install it, or pause the video and read each one of these screens. We won't necessarily read everything as we go through this. The installer is pretty standard though. If we hit next here, we'll just kind of walk through this. The destination folder on your computer by default with Best Case is C:\Best Case, so it is installing right off of the root of the C drive if you're familiar with that. And I don't recommend that you change it. It probably won't hurt anything if you do. However, I prefer to stick with the defaults and not stray from what Best Case recommends. So we'll leave this C:\Best Case and we'll hit next. Now we'll get the options for some shortcut destinations. You can see here that we will get a shortcut to launch Best Case from in the Start menu and on the Quick Launch toolbar if we so choose, and I'm going to leave both of those and hit next. So now it's ready to install. The wizard is ready to begin, and so we're going to hit install. This won't take too long to accomplish, so we'll go ahead and let this run. And there you go. Setup wizard complete. It has successfully installed Best Case Bankruptcy, and now we can go ahead and click Finish to exit the wizard, which if we leave this checkbox marked here, it will launch Best Case, and that's what we want to go ahead and do. So we'll hit Finish here and allow it to launch Best Case so that we can begin setting it up. So Best Case has launched into a demo mode. That's because we have not entered a license number yet. So if you're an attorney and you have a license number that you have received with your purchase, you'll be able to hit the register and unlock button there in the center and enter that. If you're just using this to learn how to draft bankruptcy petitions or to learn Best Case, then you will not need to unlock it. You can hit continue with demo, and that will launch in demo mode each time that you're in here. And demo mode is fully functional in the sense that you can fully complete all forms, all schedules of the bankruptcy petition. You just have some limitations. The first, most obvious one is that it does not allow you to electronically file cases. In addition, if you print any bankruptcy petition that you draft, it will have a watermark on it that will also prevent you from filing it with the court offline. So neither one of those is a big deal for your learning purposes. And if you're somebody who's working under the direction of an attorney, you can either work under their license by entering it, or you can go ahead and draft petitions here in Best Case, provide the petition file to the attorney to import into their licensed copy where they can file it or where you can help them file it. And either one works just fine. For our purposes here, we're going to hit continue with demo. And right here, these daily tips are great. I highly recommend that at least for a while, if you're new to Best Case, that you allow this to prompt you with these daily tips as you use Best Case. You'll see a checkbox here at the lower left that says don't display at startup. So if you don't want those, or once you are done with those in the future, you can mark that. But for now, I recommend for most people, go ahead and leave this on. These daily tips are really great information for you, and I highly recommend that you do that. You can even click through by hitting next and previous tip if you want to go back and forth and look. I generally just go ahead and read the one that they're offering at the time I launch it, and then go ahead and close and move on. So here's our standard welcome screen. We are being thanked for choosing Best Case Bankruptcy, and we can now change any setting that we want to make in the product in our setup and configuration. And we're going to go ahead and do that now. Okay, here is where we enter the law firm information, which is the information for the law firm and the attorney who is representing the bankruptcy client. So let's hit Setup Law Firm Information. And for our demo purposes here, we'll enter some fictitious information. We'll just put the best law firm at, let's say, 123 Main Street. And Best Case likes to do work for you and make your life easy. So we're going to jump over here and enter a zip code. Let's say 44052. And as we hit Tab, it determines that that belongs to Lorain, Ohio, and it fills that in for us. Tab again, that's what I'm doing here on my keyboard. You can use your mouse to click between fields, but I find that the better that you get with keystrokes, the more productive you're going to be in Best Case, and the quicker you'll be able to draft bankruptcy petitions, and the more money you'll make. So I highly encourage getting good at keystrokes. And so I'm just going to tab through here to get my cursor to each of the empty fields. So here at the phone number, we're not really needing to do anything specific here, but let's just do an area code that we know belongs to that area. And the fax number, we'll just do something similar. An email address of awesomeattorney@thebestlawfirm.com, which would also be thebestlawfirm.com. Okay, so this next area right below here is kind of new in the sense that we've had some administration in the White House that has been working to address student loan debt. And so because of that, Best Case is responding to that and is asking us a question here. It's saying Best Case will be listing attorneys specializing in student loan debt on an upcoming student loan relief website. and asking, would you like to be included in that? And so attorneys who want to be listed there and use this as a marketing source to obtain bankruptcy business from students with student loan debt, that might be something to consider saying yes to. For our purposes, we're going to leave it at no and hit OK to continue. All right. Something to keep in mind here, now that we've got our law firm information entered into Best Case, is that if you are working for more than one law firm drafting bankruptcy petitions, you will need to come in here and change this information before you electronically file a case for the attorney that you're filing for, if you're doing that for them. The reason for that is you don't want to file a bankruptcy petition with the court with the wrong attorney's name on it. I've seen that happen, so just a caution there that after you set up the law firm information, if you begin working for another law firm, before you electronically file a case for that new law firm, make certain that that law firm information in Best Case is updated to be correct and accurate. Now here, this second option, set up non-attorney bankruptcy petition preparers, that's not something we're going to look at. If you're unfamiliar with it, a non-attorney petition preparer is basically a person that's not an attorney, but is working as a petition preparer. That's why they call it that. Someone who prepares bankruptcy petitions for the general public, which is typically done for folks who have decided to file bankruptcy on their own without an attorney. And that's something that we encourage people to do. We want people to use an attorney so that they have the best legal protection in one of the biggest decisions of their life, this bankruptcy petition and the bankruptcy process. So we won't cover the petition preparers. There are some rules, let's say. There are some rules that govern how bankruptcy petition preparers can function. The biggest thing is, first of all, because they're not attorneys, they can't give legal advice, and that's why an attorney is helpful and useful in the bankruptcy process or any legal proceeding. And because a bankruptcy petition preparer can't give legal advice, that also means that they cannot recommend any particular exemptions to be selected to protect the assets of the person or persons filing bankruptcy. And that's on Schedule C, which is a critical component of the bankruptcy petition. So without being able to give any legal advice on that, that might leave the person or persons filing bankruptcy exposed and not have their assets protected to the full extent of the law. So secondly, the bankruptcy petition preparer does have some limitations on what they can charge their clients. And that's not a bad thing. It's a protection for the person or persons that have hired them to draft the bankruptcy petition. Now, folks that work under the direction of an attorney, whether you're a paralegal or a legal assistant or a bankruptcy assistant of sorts, then you're able to earn whatever the job is valued at for the attorneys that you're doing the work for. And that's a good thing as well, because when a person is encouraged to earn more, when they perform better, then it's better for everybody. But anyway, that's the differences between a bankruptcy petition preparer and someone who is working under the direction of an attorney. And of course, the attorney in that scenario is able to give legal advice, including Schedule C, with the exemptions that are selected on the bankruptcy petition to help protect the assets of the individuals that are filing bankruptcy, amongst many other very important decisions. So we'll go ahead and hit next here and move on. Now, jurisdictions is the areas that the country is broken up into by bankruptcy court. And as it says here, Best Case Bankruptcy includes about 100 jurisdictions that cover all 50 states and the District of Columbia, or DC, and Puerto Rico. Some states have a single jurisdiction, and some states will have multiple jurisdictions, just mostly based upon the population of the state and the need for more jurisdictions in states that have more population and thus more bankruptcy filings to manage. So we're going to go ahead and set up some jurisdictions here. All right, we'll do that by hitting the Set Up Jurisdictions button, Install New Jurisdiction, and we entered a zip code for our law firm in Ohio, so why don't we start there? We'll just scroll down, and what we want to find here is the Southern District of Ohio. I scrolled too far. And hit that and select it. And it's telling us now that a sample has been installed. A sample client for the jurisdiction has been added to your clients list and named this name here, Sample Ohio Southern District. So we'll hit OK, and that jurisdiction has now been installed. We can install as many jurisdictions here as we so choose, and so we're going to install basically the ones that we're going to be working in. So whatever attorneys and law firms that are in various jurisdictions in our local state or across the country, we'll want to get each of those installed. Now, it's probably a good idea to put some California jurisdictions on here, being that so many cases come out of California. So let's go ahead and pick one of these here. Why don't we say the Northern District of California and hit select. And the same thing, we're going to get a sample petition that we can look at from that jurisdiction. We'll hit OK. Now what we're going to need to do here is make some changes to the jurisdictions. 2 is probably plenty for our demo here. Let's go ahead and hit edit here. And from here what we want to do is go into the miscellaneous options tab, and there's a few changes we want to make to the basic setup of the jurisdictions. So first of all, what we want to do is come down here to this checkbox that says voluntary petition, print attorney name, bar number on page 1. That's always a very good practice, is to have the voluntary petition, print the attorney name and the bar number right there on page 1, where it's easy for the trustee to see. All right, now next we want to come over here to this checkbox. Schedule D, E, and F include additional notice parties, A and P. And we're going to change what that additional notice is here in a second, but first let's go ahead and mark this so that schedules D, E, and F will include the additional notice party information on them. This is referring to any additional party that needs to be notified of information that is entered in any of these 3 schedules, D, E, or F. And we want that information included. That is a very good practice. Next, we're going to come down here to the A and P amount field. We're going to select that and hit delete. And instead, we're going to type additional notify. That is the generally accepted language for that field. Let's go ahead and hit OK to save that. And that's been saved to the Northern District of California here. We can click our Southern District of Ohio and hit edit, and we can likewise do the same thing here. Come over to the miscellaneous options, come down to the voluntary petition, print attorney name on and number, bar number on page 1. Mark the checkbox for schedules D, E, and F to include the additional notice parties. Change this to additional notify. And one thing I should point out here is that these fields are not identical in every jurisdiction. You will notice some changes here and there, and that's where local rules come into play. This is mostly the same across the board, but occasionally you'll need to go to the jurisdiction's website, the bankruptcy court's website, look through the local rules and see if they have any specific rules on things that should be included on the bankruptcy petitions filed in their jurisdiction. So with those changes, let's hit OK. And that's sufficient for our purposes here. We'll go ahead and hit close, and we can move on. One thing, of course, we can point out, when you have more than one jurisdiction installed, we can choose the one that you usually draft bankruptcy petitions in. Now, I can tell you that from experience that most people who draft bankruptcy petitions for an attorney that work from home remotely will generally do about half their petitions for a local law firm or local law firms, and the other half from attorneys outside of their home state in other jurisdictions. You may find that your experience differs, but that's kind of what I have found. I'm going to go ahead and set this to the Southern District of Ohio and hit next. And now we have attorney information. Now Stretto, who creates Best Case, they have the concept that Best Case, when it is installed in the law firm and used only in that law firm. Now that's quite often true. However, law firms often have somebody drafting bankruptcy petitions that don't work in the office, or that is an independent business that they are contracting to do that work and assist their law firm. So the concept here is that we can go ahead and hit set up attorney list and hit add, and add any number of attorneys that work at that law firm where Best Case is assuming this is installed and used at all the time, which again may be the case, but it may not be the case. But this is a place where we can enter an attorney name, let's say Abraham Lincoln, and enter any additional information or change information that may apply here, including the state bar number. That would be a very handy thing to have. Pacer, this is information that would allow you to log into Pacer from Best Case for the purposes of electronically filing petitions and other purposes. So that's very helpful information here as well. All right, so we'll leave it at that here and hit OK. And we can go ahead and close and get back to our wizard. We've got page 5 of 8 here, so we got a few steps left to go. We can now hit next. Oh, before I do that, may as well point out, Best Case has really great information built into the program. If we hit learn more here and launch their help system, it'll give you some fantastic information about this right here. And we'll even cover some particular items a little bit later on in the video, but that's probably something worth pointing out here. Let's go ahead and hit next. And legal noticing. Stretto, being the provider of Best Case, provides many valuable services to attorneys and law firms. And so we're starting to see some of that here. So Stretto provides full service document production and noticing capabilities, allowing busy professionals to focus on more substantive case aspects. So this is a subscription service, an add-on above and beyond the cost a law firm would pay for Best Case for this legal noticing service. Now, there are law firms that absolutely love this. There are law firms that feel like it's not in their budget. And so it's a decision that's entirely up to the law firm and the attorney to decide. But it's worth pointing out here that these are helpful benefits. You can utilize case information and documents within Best Case, receive valuable time and cost efficiencies, and access legal noticing services easily from the ECF or Electronic Case Filing Manager. So again, this is something to consider if you are an attorney or law firm that is using Best Case, to take a look at these additional services that they provide. For our purposes, we'll hit next here without activating anything. Another service, Case Assist. As a Best Case bankruptcy user, you can easily manage bankruptcy courses and quickly obtain income, asset, and liability data for your client in a few clicks using what they call Case Assist. So you can get immediate access to pre-filing counseling and post-filing debtor education courses and income and asset data, including tax transcripts, and property appraisals. All very good information, and all available without this service as well. Okay, so it's something to determine again as an attorney or law firm that is the one purchasing the license of the Best Case that's being used to draft the petitions, if this service is worth the cost. Very helpful, and also additional cost for your law firm. So it's up to you to decide whether that's something that pays for itself and makes it worth it, or whether that's something you want to go ahead and enter manually and track down manually. So again, your call. So it's telling us, though, you can also import bankruptcy credit reports in your forms and schedules, and they're touting that you can save 60 minutes per case, and I don't doubt that, particularly when you have a long list of creditors that you need to enter. However, on simple cases, a simple no asset Chapter 7, maybe not. So again, another valuable service that you can add or not. We'll hit next to continue. And next we have the court notice and calendar integration, which allows you to easily manage the tedious and costly process of organizing and downloading your ECF court notices at no additional cost. Now this relates a lot to PACER, as you'll see in the first benefit here, the PACER fees. PACER being the public access to court electronic records that allows you to see bankruptcy petitions that have been filed with the court and see all of the items and actions that have occurred in that case. So there are free looks that are given to the attorney or the staff working for the attorney that allows you to see information about that case at no cost. However, there are costs associated with PACER on a per page viewed basis. And so when you have these free looks, that's a helpful thing. And Best Case can automatically download your free looks, and that's a helpful thing. In addition, this second benefit, you can access court emails and events directly from the client file. That's helpful. And auto population here in this third bullet of bankruptcy events to your primary calendar. That may be of benefit to you as an attorney, that your calendar is getting auto-populated and you don't have to manage that manually or have someone do it for you. But again, there is a cost for that. So decide what that's worth to you and either set it up or go ahead and do it the traditional route. We'll go ahead and hit next. And now, congratulations, setup of Best Case is complete, and we're now ready to go ahead and use Best Case. We're being told here that if there's any information that we want to change before we finish the setup wizard, we can hit the back button as many times as we need to get to the appropriate screen and change that information, then move back forward, hitting the next button, and then finish the setup. We're going to consider this done and go ahead and hit Finish Setup Wizard. And now the ongoing update that you will get from Best Case, and this is a great thing. So Best Case is asking us if we'd like to check the internet for any updates to Best Case Bankruptcy, and we can do this at any time manually as well. We're going to go ahead and hit check now just so that you can see that. And of course, because we just downloaded this and installed it, we have the latest copy already, and there are no updates. But had there been any updates, those would be able to be downloaded and installed here so that the software can remain current with any changes and fixes and updates to the software. Okay, so there's no updates at this time. We'll hit OK. And now we get our splash screen for Best Case with all of the terms of the licensing agreement. And if you want to, you can go ahead and scroll through that here. If you're a licensed user, you probably should read through that and understand it. And I'm going to go ahead and say that I accept the terms of the agreement and hit OK. And Best Case begins loading, which won't take too long here. Okay. So this is the screen that we'll see each time that we launch into Best Case and get past the daily tips if you're still using those. And the client list that we have currently will be the 2 sample petitions that were installed when we installed the 2 jurisdictions, as you might recall. So one thing to point out here, at the beginning of each of these, you'll see a number. And that number, although it looks a little odd, is actually a 17. It's just the font that they're choosing to use here. But that 17 is referring to the year 2017, which is when the forms for that jurisdiction were last changed. So you'll see different numbers and colors based on the forms and date of the forms that are used for the petition at the time. And so if we go ahead, let's go into our Ohio petition here. Now you'll see that quick refresh of information occurring there. Those are basically updates. And Actually here it's telling us that that is out of date. These forms, there are newer forms. You'll see the red there. Click Forms to use the 04/01/2022 forms. So the sample petition that Best Case is providing is still using much older forms than are currently available, and so that can be changed. But this is the bankruptcy petition, the sample that we got installed with this Ohio jurisdiction. And as we go through the other training videos, we'll go through each of these forms and each of these schedules and cover what each one is for, what its content is about, how they relate to each other, how to properly complete them, where to get the information, how to back the information up, how to do due diligence, etc. We're going to cover it all. And once we're through with our training, you'll have a very, very good understanding of bankruptcy petitions and how to properly draft them with accurate, complete information that truly represents the situation, the financial situation of the debtors, as we call them in bankruptcy, and best represent them in their situation. So the attorney can go in and have complete confidence that the information that is represented here is accurate and complete. And of course, under the attorney's direction, it will be reviewed and updates will be made based on their direction, etc. But here we are in our first bankruptcy petition. So let's go ahead and cancel out of here. There's multiple ways, like most products, to do things, 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 ways inside of the operating system to do things. And so as you get familiar with keystrokes, as I previously suggested, one of the things that you can do here is just hit escape to cancel out of the screen that you're in, rather than having to move your mouse all the way across here and hit close to get back to the client list. So one thing I wanted to show you before we move on is let's go ahead and hit close here to close the client list, because now we can move up to setup here, and you'll see in the setup all of the setup information that we did in that setup wizard. You can come up here and change each of these things. The reason I closed the client list, I maybe should have shown you, but if you don't close the client list, this will all be grayed out. In fact, let's go ahead and do that. Let's cancel out of here. And I pressed the escape button on my keyboard to do that. But let's go into File and Open, and as I said, there's multiple ways to do things. You can also press Control-O to get back to this client list. But when this list is open, other features inside of Best Case are disabled, so we can't come in here and to set up and change anything. These are all grayed out now, you'll notice. And that's so that we don't mess up the petition and change any information out from underneath us that we don't want to change. So let's go ahead and hit escape to close that menu, close this client list again, come back to setup. And so any of these things that you want to change or update or modify, perhaps you even made a typo during the setup wizard, you can come in here and change those pieces of information. So there's the law firm information that we entered. So you should recognize this from the setup wizard. We'll go ahead and cancel out of here. And this time I'm going to press Control-O just to show you that shortcuts via keyboard are very helpful and work just as well as moving your mouse and clicking around. So if we want to start a new bankruptcy petition, all that we need to do is come down to New Client and click on that, and this will start a new client file. Here's where we'll select the initial information that will allow you to save it and continue to work on it, whether that be beginning to finish as best as you can, because there's always going to be missing information or information that needs to be gathered and added. But once this is entered and you hit OK, a new bankruptcy petition file will be created and saved, and then you can continue to work on it until it's done. So I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel here for now, but that's how you would start a new petition, and we'll cover all of that in the remaining videos in our training. Okay, jumping back to our slides then, I wanted to cover a few things about Best Case and using it. I think these are helpful things to kind of get yourself started with. And first of all, I wanted to point out that Best Case has a really great getting started guide. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. You can just use this URL that you see in the web browser here. to get there rather than having to go find it. So that's bestcase.com/wp-content/uploads/2016/10, that's 10/ATTY for attorney. Getting started guide, each of those words with an uppercase letter at the beginning of them, .pdf, just like you see there. If you enter that the way that it shows, you should get to this page as long as it's still posted and available. And being that it's been there since 2016, I imagine it'll be there for a while. Anyway, this Getting Started guide is fantastic information for getting started with Best Case. And so I suggest that you go ahead and download this, read through this document. It's really not that long. As it says here, it's only 15 pages and gives you fantastic getting started information. So go ahead and make sure that you do that. Spend some time with reading through that. It won't take you very long. So let's close that. And Best Case has some menu shortcuts that are really great and will save you a lot of time. So while there are other shortcuts, these are some of the most common that will save you a whole ton of time as you're drafting bankruptcy petitions. As we look at the keyboard shortcuts section of this here, all of these will allow you to quickly jump to the form or schedule that you want to work on so that you don't have to find it in the list, because it might surprise you to know that each jurisdiction doesn't order them the same way. So Best Case follows the way that each jurisdiction defines the order of the forms and schedules for that jurisdiction. And so it may not always be in the same place when you're working on a petition in one jurisdiction versus another jurisdiction. But if you use the shortcuts, it doesn't matter what the position is on the screen that matches the order the jurisdiction defines. It will just jump there. So if you want Schedule A, you just hit A, as shown right up here. And so we'll demonstrate that here real quick. Okay, back here in Best Case, we'll go ahead and open our sample Ohio Southern District petition by double-clicking on it. And here we are in all of the forms and schedules in the order that this jurisdiction requires them to be in. So if we want to work on Schedule A, which in the newer versions of bankruptcy forms and in the software to match is actually A/B. So if I hit A or B in this instance, it will jump to this form and open it up. If I hit C, it will open Schedule C. If I hit D, it will open Schedule D. If I hit E or F, it will open Schedule F, and so on. So from where I'm at, if I want Schedule A or B, which is our property, I can hit A and it jumps there. Let me hit Escape to get out. We'll click back down here and hit B. And again, you can see it goes to the same place. So in this instance, because that's A/B, A and B both take us there. So let's go ahead and cancel out with Escape. If I want Schedule J, I'll hit J. And here we are in Schedule J, where we can edit and change and update that form. Hitting Escape and getting back. Same thing with some of these others. If I want to hit 7, what do we get? Form 107, Statement of Financial Affairs, and so forth. Hit Escape, and it's giving us an error here. This is common when you have this sample petition here. It's just giving us information about the petition, this particular form that needs information. Because this is sample, it's not really going to matter in this case. It's telling us you have not entered an answer for question 1, marital status, which is a very important piece to answer. So if you do not answer question 1, no selection will be made for the printed or PDF version of the form. Again, this is our sample petition, so it's not really going to matter, but we can choose to fix it here. Why not? Let's go ahead and hit Fix, and go ahead and say married, and hit OK. And now if we go ahead and close this form, that error is fixed. So now you know how to fix errors if that does crop up, whether it's a sample petition or something that has been entered incorrectly, because you can and should get those messages popping up from Best Case when there are things that need to be fixed. So that's a good little demonstration for you there. We'll go ahead and hit Close here and get back to our client list. And so we'll jump back over here to our Best Case shortcut list. If you want to, you can write these down. get familiar with these. They'll save you a bunch of time. Jumping back into best case here, I thought it a better idea as I started thinking about it, that rather than trying to write down those keyboard shortcuts, let's use this as an opportunity to show you the help system of best case. So if we go into help and hit help contents, come over here to search, I'm going to put in keyboard shortcuts. And we get a whole bunch of shortcut things here. Right there's our keyboard shortcuts. If we double click that, you can see I've been there. Here they are. You have not only the shortcuts that I showed you, but some general shortcuts that are useful in all Windows applications. And within best case itself, here's your client list shortcuts, your forms and schedules menu shortcuts. These are the ones that I showed you. And so this is a great resource, this help right here. In fact, let's go ahead and do this here. We're going to type macro. This is the next thing I'd kind of like to show you here, is the macro feature where you can save common phrases. Let's double click that to load it. And following these steps here, we can create some macros for text that you commonly enter into petitions so that you don't have to manually type it each time that you want to use it. You'll be able to go ahead and just hit the macro key combination and have best case enter a word, a phrase, whatever it is you want to enter, and it will save a lot more time. So right here it's telling us how to use the macro. And so to access your list of macros, we would close any schedules that are open, close the forms and schedules menu, and then close the client list window, and so on. We can just follow all of these steps here, and we can demonstrate how this actually works in real time. So let's go ahead and close this and come over to best case and just do it. Okay, back here in best case, what we need to do first before we can create any macros is we got to close out of our client list. And from here we go back into our setup and come down to macro phrase list. This would give a list of any macros that you have created. Being that this is a new installation, we don't have any defined. So what we're going to do is hit insert, and we need to pick a control key. Now I'm going to hit the drop down and I'm going to pick H. And now when I press Control H, once we finish defining this anyway, it's going to enter the text that I type here in this field that I want to be automatically typed out for me in whatever field my cursor happens to be in at the time. So I'll click down here in the macro text, and what I want to put in here is household goods and furnishings consisting of colon, and I'm going to leave this checkbox marked here to add a trailing space so that it automatically adds a space after that. Now this data option is pretty cool too. If there's particular items that you want automatically entered for you that isn't specific text that you want to type here, like the date. If you want the date and time entered automatically for you when you hit Control T, let's say, for time, or Control D for date, I should have said probably. Anyhow, these are variables that can be used to enter specific information when you use a control letter or control number keystroke combination, because if we go back here, here's the options that you have available to you. All of these letters, and if we scroll down, several numbers are available as well. Now there are certain letters that are excluded here which are used for Windows functions, like Control C for copy, Control X for cut, Control V for paste, etc. Those letters are excluded from that list on purpose so that we don't have a problem with Windows and its functions. So let's go ahead and leave this at H for our control key, and this text here, hit OK to save it. Now in our list of macros, we have that macro defined. So if we close out of here and then hit open or Control O, let's go back to our Ohio couple here, and let's go over to schedule A and B, and let's hit insert to insert a new piece of property into this schedule. And what we want to choose is household goods and furnishings. Now I could go ahead and manually type out household goods and furnishings consisting of, but instead I'm going to use my macro. I'm going to hit Control H, and voila, we have household goods and furnishings consisting of entered for us. Another huge time saver for you that I'm sure you'll really enjoy using. Now, the last item I wanted to cover in our additional items is the list of bankruptcy jurisdictions. Since we've been talking a lot about the jurisdictions, let's go ahead and take a look at this website at uscourts.gov/federal-court/finder/search. And this will allow you to find the jurisdictions that are out there. And so as you can see in this federal court finder, we can search by location here, which I find to be the easiest. Search by address, city, state, or zip code. So if you have a particular debtor that is in a jurisdiction and is filing bankruptcy, how do you know what bankruptcy jurisdiction they're in? Well, first of all, the attorney should know and should be able to tell you. However, we can come in here and enter the zip code, and that will help us to find that as well. So if we enter a zip code of 44052, it tells us that that's in Lorain, Ohio, and we can pick that here. And here it loads all of the district information. What we can come over here and do now is under the court type, if we hit that, we can now choose U.S. bankruptcy courts to filter the list down. Now if we scroll through the list, these are the jurisdictions that exist and the addresses of the locations for that district. Looking at the top here, this tells us that this is the Northern District of Ohio, and so that's the jurisdiction that that zip code exists in. And here are some court locations, this one being the closest at 24.3 miles from that particular zip code, the Ohio Northern Bankruptcy Court in Cleveland at this address, 201 Superior Avenue. You can use this same method to look up any jurisdiction across the United States. This concludes our training on how to download, install, and configure Best Case Bankruptcy software. I hope you found this video informative, helpful, and educational. 713 Training is the leading provider of bankruptcy petition drafting training, and we train legal assistants, paralegals, law office staff, bankruptcy petition preparers, and really anyone interested in a rewarding career in the legal field. If you need to reach out to us with any questions or you want to check out our website, this is our contact information. Again, I hope you found this helpful and informative, and we look forward to seeing you in our next training videos.